First, we have a little bit of housekeeping. We are in listen-only mode, so please make sure your mic is muted. If you're having any Wi-Fi issues, you may want to turn off your camera and any other programs you have running. If you'll take a moment, please note the chat feature. It's either in the upper right hand of your screen or in the lower right hand of your screen if you're using the web application. Please use the chat for communications, as we will not be taking questions by audio. Jim Kilinowski of Dewberry is monitoring the chat and will try to help you with any technical matters. Please post to everyone when using the chat. We are offering 1 continuing education credit for the CFMs. To receive the credit, you must be logged in separately, answer all poll questions during the session, and provide your name and email at the end of the presentation. Poll questions should appear as a pop-up bubble in the screen, but may appear in the chat box. So you may want to go ahead and just open the chat box and have it ready. A copy of the presentation will be emailed to all attendees along with a survey link that we appreciate you completing so we can improve these webinars in the future. We are recording today's webinar and plan to post the video on georgiadfirm.com. All right, with that, let's get started. Today we have a presentation about best practices for CRS communities, stories from the field. Our presenters are Brian Schown of Georgia DNR, with a roundtable discussion including Michael Blakely of Chatham County, Tom McDonald of the City of Savannah, and Connie Smith of Columbia County. Okay, with that, let's take a real quick poll question, just see how our audience is. We ready?
Yep.
Is your community in the community rating system program? Yes, no, I don't know.
And if you're not working for a community, let us know the community that you live in, if it is a CRS community or if you don't know.
Oh, sorry about that.
And if you didn't see the poll question, take a look at it in the chat box for those who are able to get that.
Okay, please be sure to answer that as you're joining us. It is in the chat box.
And if possible, please try to submit your vote using the radial buttons in the chat.
Okay, that looks like we're getting close to 80%. Is that about right?
Yep, it's looking about that.
All right. Let's go ahead and close that out then. And it looks like a large majority of the folks are with a CRS community or live in a CRS community, with very few of them who are not, which is kind of good news. Our first presenter is Brian Schown. Mr. Schown has worked in the state of Georgia for the past 29 years at 5 local communities, 1 private engineering firm, and now works for the state of Georgia's floodplain unit. He holds 2 bachelor degrees, 2 professional engineering licenses, and a certified floodplain manager certificate. He's taught over 100 classes with topics ranging from retaining walls, pavement construction, stormwater conveyance, stormwater quality, and of course, floodplain management. And with that, I'll now turn it over to Brian.
Microphone, there we go. Good day. I do have a bit of a problem, sinuses going on. I'm attempting to quell my problem with atomic firewalls. and sipping tea. So occasionally I will have to snort, cough, or something else for a little break to let things go along. Hopefully it will not bother the presentation too much on there. If I just disappear entirely, Emily will take over and continue on. We actually have a two-parter on this in a way. I'll have a discussion, or I'll be talking for a spell about CRS, changes to it, problems going on with it and things like that. And then we'll have 3 people come on and talk about their experiences with CRS, either this year or in a previous year, about stuff going on. So be sure. Floodplain and floodplain management. It's which I should have put in there. It's actually controlling or attempting to control or be in a disaster zone. We know where the flood is going to be because that's where the floodplain is. We don't know where tornado is going to hit. It's pretty wide open on that. We don't know about ice storms, roughly where it hits, how bad it might be in one place or the other, that kind of thing. But with flood, we know where it's going to be on there. So it's promoting a better use of that floodplain disaster area that we have out there. In a way, I changed floodplain to disaster zone and let us run with that and see how things pop up on there. But it's to protect the natural functions, and one of the biggest natural functions is some place to put all that water that collects in the stream so that it can move through the community on there. So, let's see if I can do buttons here. Oh, very good. The benefits of managing what's out there is, one, you have safer communities instead of letting people build entirely within the floodplain, the disaster area, and they can build like they want. We'll end up with something like Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Toccoa Falls, Toccoa, Georgia. Those are dam breaks, but it's still a big flood that came cruising through. Or we'll pick on, as far as a newer location, it would be Mexico Beach, Florida. Hurricane Michael, a couple of years ago, came to visit Mexico Beach and scraped away all houses that were built before about 2000. I've forgotten the hook that goes by St. Joe. All those houses were built well after 2000. They're all standing, even though they took the full brunt of the storm that went across them. They're still standing. So not having good housing structures built, the storms will take them away. But the benefits, if we have good housing built, we stay out of the way of it. We get back to having our nice lives disrupted less as we go along, decrease. So also we get the benefit of lower flood insurance premiums. This is more of CRS. Being in the CRS is now with risk rating 2.0. The CRS discount applies to the entire jurisdiction. It does not apply to A zone or V zone and a little bit in the X500. It now applies across the board. So if you're in an X zone, you get the full discount. So that's a benefit of risk rating 2.0 on there. In applying for grants items, there's a checklist. There's about 5 items on there. One of them being, if you're in CRS, then your application gets moved toward the top. Also, if you're in CRS, you get kudos for, hey, our town is better than this other town over here. Come and live in our town. It's things to think about, to compete with, and stuff like that on there. And we'll go with. Now, we have changes coming up, or we've had changes, and we're talking about those. Mike to Emily. Actually, it's Mike and a couple other people going to Emily. We have one CRS reviewer coordinator person that works with ISO, who does the CRS program. The company is Versic, just can't pronounce the name real well. Starts with a V, ends with risk, somewhere in there. She works for Verix, whatever that thing is called, ISO folks. She works with them, and we have now one person that does the entire state. With the pandemic coming along, Mike was doing in-place site visits. I would tag along on a few of those just to get out of the office. And we're not having those anymore. It's all now online, desktop review, sitting from afar, except Emily's somewhere in Atlanta. Now, this is Emily Schmidt. I have her full name later on. It's not Emily Wingo here at the state. So you're going to have to, when you email something out, be sure if it's Schmidt or Wingo before you send them on there. Just watch out about that. Another change that has come along is the document review has been automated, especially with elevation certificates now being called construction certificates. That those are processed through in massive bulk. Everybody turns them in every year. You think of Florida, they've got the bulk of CRS communities down in Florida. They crank out thousands of elevation certificates. There had to be a way to process. So it's now all automated. Nothing looks at the pictures or looking at surveyor notes and things like that as far as the first rollout that goes through it. They were trying to have changes like every 3 or 4 years, 5 years, something like that. We went from a 13 manual to a 17. Now we're 4 years later having a 21 rollout. That rolled out last year on there. So there are changes coming around, and it's going to be like every 4 years or so, there's going to be a big change rollout. So you have to keep up with how things are changing on there. More changes, or the bigger changes on there, as far as there is strict adherence to the deadlines. We are October 15th. Get your stuff turned in. Before is my preference, October 15th, but on 15th is fine. That's the deadline. Or you'll get the nastygram from ISO saying you didn't turn the stuff in. If you don't turn it in within 15 days, we're going to forward you up to FEMA to get you kicked out of the program. Then if you've totally forgotten about it, and it's a ton of work to do in 15 days, it's just a little bit hard, or if you're working up to it, but there's strict adherence. Further on down in my last bullet point down there, we at the Georgia Flood Unit are now getting all the letters sent from CRS. So if they pop one out, ISO pops one out and says, you're late, we know it. On there, they also pop out if the construction certificates, elevation certificates aren't meeting the 90% threshold. We get it. We get a lot of stuff now rolling out to them. So You gotta strictly adhere to the deadlines, turn everything in, because if you miss turning something in, they pop you back a note. Where is this? Or this doesn't line up right with what we're asking for. So it's become a lot more strict. It's not so much easy going. And I would lean toward it applies to every policy now in the community. So there are some communities, I'm thinking of Camden County, that half the community was Zone X, and the other half was in AE or something like that, or it actually could be a lower number in there. Now, all those X zones get Camden County's lower rating. Well, now the insurance applies across, since it applies across the board on there, and my throat's starting to go, so let me take a sip of tea here. Hold on. Since it applies to all policies, they are strict about you hitting deadlines, turning the right stuff in. There's no and if buts about it as it goes along. On there, let's see what I did. There we go. On the plus side, I've been hitting on that insurance premiums reduced for all policies. Yay! Now we can actually expand what we do here in Georgia, because a lot of people would say, well, I've got 4 policies in the A zone and 200 in the X. It's not worth it. Now it is worth it to go after those X policies that didn't get any insurance reduction before. There are online training and videos. They have classes, and they have a nice newsletter. Get that newsletter and read, see what's coming down the pike, and see how others are helping out. There's some other resources on there. So it's crsresources.org to get that additional help on that end. From the state side, we're looking into trying to pull together information that others are using and seeing if you can do the same. That's a work in progress right now. I'm doing it, and I'm behind. I'll just tell you, I'm behind on it, and one day I'll finally get it finished up on there. Things to be aware about. There's rearranging of things within the manual, where points were allowed for one spot, now they're located in another spot, and you got to keep up with where things are getting relocated. And as far as when we jump from a 13 manual to a 17, there are some communities that have not been reviewed in the last 5 years or 4 years. For the 17 manual, you're still sitting on the 13. There was a big change between 13 and 17. So you might be having to hunt down points to maintain your class that you're in, because things changed around pretty good. And even with the 21 version, changes of where things are located has moved around in that addendum that's come out. So you got to watch out about that stuff too, because you might be referring to one number and it's not there anymore as you go through. We get to construction certificates, 90%. So if you have one certificate, you have to have it perfect. If you have 43, then there's a percentage of that. I won't know, or is it 46? You could ask Chatham County, because they had something up in that category. So they had to get so many right as you go along. But for the communities that get one every now and then, it has to be perfect on there. Strongly recommend that you watch there's videos online at CRS resources. Watch their videos and be sure you've got that certificate filled out the way CRS wants it on there. They're also changing the name from elevation certificate to construction certificate. They are broadening out what the certificates to be turned in are. It's the, if you have any flood proofing, that gets turned in. There was a couple of others. There was one about building in the V zone that you have to turn in. To get those checklists, to get additional checklists besides the construction certificate one, that one is located in the book. The checklist of what CRS is looking for is in the book. Other checklists, you get to email Emily Schmidt on it. And for all the CRS communities in Georgia, you've already sent the email to her, so you know who I'm talking about on there. You've got the email address on there. Be sure that you use the most recent, that the surveyors turn in the most recent forms. There was one community that got popped with not having the most recent one turned in on there. Now, they do have that expiration date. I think it's coming up this year. But it would still be the most current until a new one rolls out. We're looking at 90%. Another item to remember is only turn in certificates that are brand new construction houses or houses that are substantially improved. Don't turn in ones that are near a detention pond that you might have an ordinance that says, give me an elevation certificate if you're next to the pond. For the Metropolitan North Georgia Water Planning District people, they have an adjacent clause. So floodplain's here, and you build over here, you might be adjacent. There's an elevation certificate for that. Don't turn that one in, even if it is new or substantially improved. Don't turn it in. It's not in the special flood hazard area. So that's all they're looking for. Buildings in that area. If it's not substantially improved or substantially damaged, don't turn it in. Just remember that, because they check everything. And then it becomes a hard problem to get rid of those, because it goes against you if it's not perfect the way CRS wants it on there. So, more things about going on. So we got the construction certificates. You turn in every year, you bundle them all up, fire them off. They like that. They get processed automatically through their system. Other changes that have come down is to be in class 9, you have to have at least a 1-foot freeboard in your ordinance on there. Other changes coming along is needing a substantial damage plan. How to keep up with when disaster strikes, whether it's a single house fire or a Hurricane Michael, and it takes out half the community on there. You need to have a plan on how to manage getting through a substantial damage, all the categories for it, or process going through, how to track down structures. You could end up with a house that is in the backwoods someplace, and yes, you need the sheriff's deputy and an armored car to drive out there because the person is likely to shoot you, but you still need to check that house out. That might be damaged on it. So you've got to watch out about stuff like that. So you got to have that plan. There's also the structure repetitive loss plan on how to deal with those houses. So things that you have to create rather than you have to have something written down, a process, a plan, a management plan, that kind of thing for both of those as you go along. There's certainly been on our end a very big push on the substantial damage after disasters, especially presidential ones that come along, that were being leaned on by the state to help out the local communities, being sure that that is getting covered. So they're really worried about those. So we got to have the plans. On a side note, when we do CAVs, which Community Assistance Visit, it's an audit. We come down and audit your program. We're looking for the same stuff. We're looking for that substantial damage plan operation on there. So everybody needs to have that on there. Excuse me. Now, getting information, we get calls about this every now and then about your repetitive loss locations, houses, stuff like that. We don't have the data. We can't get the data. We're trying to get the data, but we don't have it right now. So you need to ask Dewana Davis. She works for FEMA Insurance Branch in there. There's her email address. Go ahead. I'm going to leave it up for a while. Get that thing copied down, fire off email to her, and tell her you want to have the newest, latest, greatest stuff that they have on there. So just go ahead. We'll let that sit there. Dewana.davis@FEMA.dhs.gov. And I thought I got rid of that extra little dot after gov, but sorry about that. So Dewana Davis at FEMA. Order up your RL information. Also, it'd be good to order up all of the flood insurance policy information, the past and the present. You could go after additional things. You can update some of your multi-jurisdiction, multi-hazard plan that all the counties have on there. Get that updated so you can go after grants better, grants to do stuff. Also, it helps out with the RL plan and then the SRL, which is severe repetitive loss. You can calculate all that stuff up. So get that insurance data from Dewana, and it'll help you out on a variety of things. Okay. So let's see. And what do you do once you have that data? Or getting additional data for your RL and SD plans? Well, Georgia DFIR, we have the HICRAS files online, and you can download them in areas. We also have, well, Joe answer that if he's here, but we have the HICRAS data on there. You can also look on our site to see who's in, who's out, that kind of thing. The M.A.P Service Center has the flood risk products database. Since we are the ones here at the state that are generating this stuff, we hire the contractors that make up the stuff. Pardon me, they analyze and create the stuff. Sorry about that. Man, train of thought just went out. We're the ones that hire everybody out. And we do the stuff and we create a big database. It's a lot more than FEMA requires, but FEMA gets everything on there. So you can download that database and get a lot of information from it, depth grids and other sundry things. And they will help you out with your substantial damage plan, repetitive loss plan. Say if you're doing trying to figure out the area for your repetitive loss house, well, you bring down the depth grids, you put your one house in there, and you can see how deep the water is for everybody else out there. So you can make it fairly quick instead of trying to figure out what all them little squiggy contour lines mean on there. So you have that. So we have a lot of data for you to download and to use on there. And 30 minutes, that's what I was shooting for. That's good. That's me. Phone number, email's best on there. If you leave a phone number, I'll actually have a voicemail. So we still have that run on that, and we'll go to a little wrap up. Keep up with all the changes. Be on time with the documentation. Watch out for online training. Go after it, that kind of thing. And on there, and my other statement that I like, just because you're compliant doesn't mean you're not out of danger on there. So I will stop presenting. So we're going to have the 4 people.
Well, hang on just a second, Brian. We got a couple of questions for you,
Oh.
if you've got a second before we start the roundtable discussion.
All right, go right ahead.
Are PRP policies gone and now only have standard X policies? How does the cost compare? And I'm assuming this is all the insurance questions for Risk Rating 2.0.
From what I understand, yes, the PRP is dead after April something, April 1. That's when they start rolling out to everybody, insurance-wise. They're running, I think they're running new policies and some other stuff right now. But come April, they start going after all of the older policies and start processing. And they will change when their policies come due. So PRP is out. The rates have gone up. How much is just, and I can't even say that word, sorry. Bad raises between PRP and standard X. As far as I know, there is a jump. On there, the CRS helps to bring it back down, but I think in the end, it will still be a rise more than what the CRS can bring down. So from what I understand is that's insurance question there. So yeah, no more PRP, dead.
And we've also got the question, do these have to be done by a registered engineer? I'm assuming these are all construction certificates and not just elevation certificates.
Okay. Let's see. The ones done for elevations where you're complying with your ordinance. It is my understanding by the state of Georgia's professional licensing folks that the engineers cannot do elevations. It has to be a surveyor on there. And that's if they're actually giving a geodetic actual elevation. If they're saying 4 feet off the ground, anybody can do it. 3 feet, 4 feet off the ground, whatever ground is out there. But if they're actually giving a precise elevation, the surveyor has to do it. It does state on the form, architect, engineer, surveyor, but that covers the entire country. State of Georgia, let the surveyors do it.
Okay.
I don't think professional engineers have the authority to do that. Let's see, for the other things, there is one that engineers have to do. It's the structural analysis for a house in a B zone. Architects should not touch that on there, even though it does say architects can do it. Structural engineers do it. I am a professional engineer. I am not a structural engineer. I can build a doghouse, but I won't design a house sitting on the coast. On there, I have the training, but I don't call myself a structural engineer. And there's actually a license for structural engineers. So you have a general civil engineer, maybe, and then structural engineer.
Okay.
On there. So there's a couple of things that I think there was one more. Flood proofing. That is open to architect and engineer. The surveyor can't do it. He can survey to the elevations, but he cannot sign to whether or not the floodproofing is going to hold or not.
Okay. And one more. Brian, are you saying that the structures must be in the special flood hazard area for us to turn in elevation certificate?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
That's what it says. The structures have to be in that special flood hazard area. Now, if a corner of it is in AE or A and part of it's in X, it's still in. The higher, the more restrictive classification applies. So it's in if a foot is sticking into the floodplain. And yes, then that one you have to turn in on there. So it has to be in there. So it's nice, small little area. So you're not worried about things on the outside. Fancy little lines that I have here. Anything over here, down the hall in my house, you know, or over here outside through the window. No, it's outside. So you stay inside the boundary lines. You minimize how many certificates you turn in and be sure you're getting 90% of those correct. You got 2 chances to get them all through. Preference is to hit them all that first time, or you'll get a nastygram to come back and they give you 15 or 30 days to get it fixed. It might not be enough time as it rolls through. And as far as the processing goes, I'm trying to remember when all the emails rolled out. So October 15th, everything rolls in. We got stuff in October. Yep, 1st of November, the 15 days started kicking in. We got stuff through October. We got stuff through November. And I think we got a couple into December as far as sending that first note back saying you've done something wrong or you haven't done it the CRS way and you got to give us stuff back. So it will come over time. Preference is to get it all right the first time.
Okay. One last question. Where is the data for RL and SD plans? I'm assuming that's on the Georgia DFirm site and not the information that you have to get from FEMA.
Well, the RL to create an RL, repetitive loss property, that's insurance data. That comes from Dewana Davis. We don't have it on there. The some of the data for the substantial damage plan, we would have it in depth grid, stuff like that, but we don't have it located per house. We just have a nice big blob. It's not really a blob, it's a nice precise engineering blob. But we don't have it per address on there, but we just have big areas. When you download the data and put it into your GIS system, then you can see it covering properties and stuff like that on there.
And we have one more add in to this. Could you clarify, is there no structural discipline license in Georgia?
There's PE, structural PE. That's a special test that structural engineers to get their PE license. There is one for just structural engineers, separate from the generic, which was me.
Okay.
On there, but the architects, they can't take it, and the mechanical engineers can't take it. So you got to watch out about who's signing off. Be sure they're from a structural background.
Good to know. Let's go on to our roundtable discussion. We have Michael Blakely of Chatham County, Tom McDonald of the City of Savannah, and Connie Smith of Columbia County, all floodplain administrators for their communities. And Brian's going to lead us in that, and we've just got 20 minutes to go, Brian.
Okay. I had to get me a little throat lozenge, atomic fireball. So you'll see it moving around. Hopefully it won't make too much noise. It's certainly rattling in my head pretty good. So we'll start with, start with Connie on here. They went through a 13 manual to 17 manual last year or this year, sometime relatively soon, still up in their brain of the hassle of changing from one manual to another. And they were able to do some things to keep the same, actually lower the category. Yep, we got a thumbs up. To lower the category down, that's really good. So let her take herself off of mute and talk about what they did.
All right. Can you hear me?
You're pretty soft.
Okay. I'll try to talk louder. So Brian is right. With the changes between the 2013 and the 2017 manual, it is really confusing to some extent, and it's also a lot harder to get points for the activities. We started out as a Class 7 under the 2013 manual. That would give our residents a 15% discount on their flood policies. When we went through our 5-year cycle, we were surprised that we found out we was going to be graded under the 2017 manual. Because of that, we actually retrograded to a Class 8, which reduced the discount from 15% to 10%. With the support of our managers, our division directors, and our county commissioners, we were able to hire an outside consultant to perform an audit on our floodplain management program. During the audit, we looked at where we can make small improvements to our current activities so that it would better align us with the current manual. We also explored new options that would benefit our residents and the overall program. Some changes we did initially was to update our existing outreach materials. We offered various items in Spanish and English. We also looked at what program aspects we could drop to make us more effective and efficient. Some of the new activities we focused on was activities 330, the outreach project, 450, stormwater management, and 510, floodplain management planning. With the support of the county's upper management being critical at this point, because we really needed participation and help from other departments. Thankfully, we had their understanding and their support moving forward because some of those were still feeling the sting of us dropping that class. We did have a supportive network, and we were able to form a program for public information, or PPI, with our public relations manager and some volunteers from different local industries. We performed a repetitive loss area analysis for the areas that have experienced repetitive flood damage and also extended our outreach to new areas. In addition, we beefed up aspects of our stormwater operations program. We added more inspections to our problem areas, defining those areas in our capital improvement program. While we have a lot of ideas on how to get to these goals, we also had to weigh the needs of our community and the associated cost of each new action that we had to do. So then in the spring of 2020, we submitted for a modification, and thanks to the hard work of our staff, department heads, our consultant, which was an awesome consultant, and our PPI group, not only did we gain back the points that we lost during retrograde, we were also able to improve our class rating to a Class 6, which now allows our residents a 20% discount on their flood policies. And our Class 6 rating became effective October the 1st of 2021. And that's all.
Yeah, very good. We, as far as getting through the manual, hiring somebody to to wade through it, because it is something that we kind of get used to doing things a certain way on there, and CRS way is, well, it's applied across the country, so they have to do a particular rigid way of doing things. And certainly some of the outreach items, they're a bit tricky to fit within their little area in there, and you have to keep tweaking to get something to fit into that. So that's really good to fit in there. So back to the yay. That's all I can say. It's yay on there, because now it will apply to every single policy in the county. So we'll move along to Tom. I picked on Tom to talk about things because we got the nasty grams from ISO, from those group, the Derek's people, about saying, well, I think the first one was not enough certificates passed. I think that was one of them. And everything is processed through, I don't know how they actually analyze it, but they process it through, it's like a big computer spreadsheet, and it spits out something on there. But Tom was able to, and I'm probably taking all his thunder out, he was sent back a note saying, look at what the surveyor said. You know, read more than just the number crunching on there. Look at the pictures, see what the surveyor said. And lo and behold, they gave it to them. So the surveyors did a good job at working on their certificates. So now the certificates went from bad to good on there. So I explained everything. So Tom, you can just be quiet. Go back to the beach.
Yes. No, but yeah, we turned in 27 elevation certificates, and 8 of them were gigged. And so when they sent the email saying, you know, you had some issues, I was able to go back and review the elevation certificates and write back comments saying, please look at section D for surveying comments, to where they explain all the different elevations within the section C of the elevation certificate. Or I also had in section G, I was able to fill out the elevation certificate correction form, and that is on the CRS resource website under activities 300, that I can write some comments on it. So if they had the wrong community number or some misinformation, I was able to correct it, put some pictures in there to help further explain it. And with that, when it came back, we had 100% correct. So no more gigs.
Yay, once again, yay. Now, granted, everybody who, in all our processing emails that we listening into and getting it back, everybody made it the second time through. So everybody who made it the first time and didn't get a response back, or the first time that they got a response, got everything corrected. So the second review, everybody is still in the program in the state. So 54, 55 folks are all still in. So that's yay. So we're getting through. Everybody's getting everything corrected up to that point. It's just, it's getting watched more on there, and it's popping back. Now, one thing I didn't mention, that CRS looks for certain items. They also check for items that they'll list as possible violations. And that's me. I get to look at those things, and I get to come and visit you. Well, you're in luck. I am backed up. I might have to give it to Emily to let her do it. She's very good at rounding up all you folks that violations. Some of them, Tom and I, we talked about one elevation certificate he had. They've got the same problem over in Jekyll Island. It's not a violation. It's just popping that way in the system. So we have to get it labeled in right. But things that come through say new structure built below BFE. I get it. And things like that, if things pop through like that and I get a hold of them, there are possible violations. The problem with violations is you get kicked out of CRS. So we can't have those certificates showing structures that are built out of compliance on there. Now, if we could get that thing worked out, get it resolved, get it fixed, maybe get it changed or whatever, you know, maybe it was a bad deal on the surveyor side doing something, then we can keep you in. But if it ends up being, yes, you allowed a building to get built too low, well, the first thing we do is get you kicked out of CRS. It's the first penalty that comes through. And then it's going to take you a while to get back in on there. So old Tom, he was able to take care of all his problems and get to stay up and get in there. Now we'll move on to Michael. He's still having video problems.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me though?
Yeah, we can hear you there.
Oh, okay. Well, I apologize.
And he refuses to be seen. He just likes showing
No,
the
well,
backside.
if I turn my tablet around, then you can't hear me because the speakers on the microphone's on the other side.
Wrong side.
Yeah. So
plus, Chatham County's got all this fancy electronic stuff. That's what the problem is.
Actually, to give you a little bit of background, Chatham County is on lockdown because of everything that's going on with Ukraine and Russia. We're preparing for any cyber attacks. Therefore, because I have a new tablet, there are restricted authorization to go in and change anything on it. So I can't get this thing fixed until some point in time after the Russia-Ukraine issue is done. So I'm kind of stuck.
Okay. So in Chatham County,
yeah,
they had a whole slew of elevation certificates go in and they missed the 90% first time around. So go ahead.
Well, our situation is a little different. I execute this program with the assistance of Christine Williams, and Christine was totally aware of all the errors associated with the elevation certificates, yet we're experiencing some difficulties with the other department with getting those items corrected. And it's a struggle that I've been dealing with for a very, very long time. It is difficult sometimes to get your own people to do what they need to do. So I made the call to Christine and said, send the ECs up anyway. We will get the letter. Well, she did, and we got the letter. And what I was hoping to occur was that when this letter comes in through the chairman, it's going to hit his desk. He was going to fly off the chain and go on a headhunting mission to find out exactly what the issue is, of which hopefully at that point we would get this situation resolved that's been going on for some 8 to 10 years. But to my surprise, it turns out that after he received the letter, he contacted our county engineer, and with her being very politically correct and polite, did not want to throw her fellow director under the bus, stated that we will make it right. So it all backfired, and engineering, Christine and I are still stuck with correcting elevation certificates that we don't even receive. So it's an internal issue that I was hoping to get addressed, but it didn't happen. But anyway, we got the ECs corrected, sent them back in, we got a good score, and we're still in the program. So that was a little strategy that I had that kind of blew up in my face. And it got me right back where I started from. Yet this 10-year effort continues and probably will be up until the day I retire.
Which is what, next year? So,
somewhere in that time period, yes.
Yeah, we keep you involved.
Yeah, at least now you can't see the grin on my face.
Yeah. on that. So, do we have any questions? Got like 5 minutes left. We got to use up all the time.
No,
One
Short.
if I may.
sure.
Yeah, I would like to add to everybody that's listening. If you do not have a rapport with your state floodplain management division, Brian and Hayden and Emily, and or have a relationship with ISO, Scott and the other Emily, I would encourage you to develop it, because I bother Brian all the time, and he has been insurmountable with the help and assistance that he's provided us over the years. Also, reach out to your local floodplain administrators. I could not do, nor would I be where I am without the cooperation and assistance from Mr. Tom McDonald with the City of Savannah. So I would strongly suggest build your alliances. That's what helps you move your program along and get you answers to questions, because I don't know about other communities, but there are a lot of people in Chatham County with a lot of money. They want to do some of the craziest stuff, and I just don't always have the answers. So I have to reach out to my colleagues to get help. So I would strongly recommend that you do that, and I'll get off the soapbox. Thank you.
We do have one quick question for both Connie and Tom. Is there a recommendation that you would offer to attendees as well? Connie?
I guess just, going through the manuals, if you're still on an older manual, be familiar with the newest, most current version of that manual. Try to find where your points are being allotted now, and how you have to beef up your outreach to get those points. Having a knowledgeable consultant to come in and audit, if you're able to do that, is also a huge plus.
Tom?
I would say, like Michael was saying, get to know the CRS user groups and local floodplain managers and other CRS coordinators, but also plagiarism. This is one place where plagiarism is accepted. What communities do, you can take their outreaches, their ideas, and apply it to your own.
I would just offer
community.
one little thing to what Tom said. Plagiarism can be used in certain instances, but if you're going to use plagiarism, don't leave it saying Columbia County when you're submitting for the City of Savannah. Just saying. Anyway, thank you so much, Brian, Tom, Michael, and Connie, for that very informative webinar. I do appreciate it tremendously. Hang on just a second. I want to pull something up for everybody.
Emily.
Yes.
Can you see me now?
I can.
All right.
Can.
So
Say
I got a question off record from Tom McDonald. And I think it's a very good question. He was asking how difficult is it to get the surveyors to change information on the EC, and especially after the CO has been issued. Sometimes we do encounter some difficulty with making that happen, and there have been some ECs where we've gotten our own people to make the changes in submission. But typically, and for the most part, we have a pretty good relationship. When I say we, engineering, we have a pretty good relationship with the local surveyors. And most of the time, they are willing to correct their ECs after the fact, because Tom and I have made them aware of our CRS program, how it benefits the citizens in the community. And they realize that the citizens in the community are their bread and butter. So they want to try to stay in good standings with us with respect to getting ECs correct. So that helps.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Tom.
Michael. Real quick, everybody who's left that is looking for continuing education credits for their CFM, if you will please put your name and email address in the chat right now, I'd appreciate it as well.
Got to turn around.
And Also, make sure that you mark your calendar down for the next Lunch and Learn, which is May 4th from 12 to 1. And if you will please look at your screen real quick, or if you see it in the chat, there's a link to a survey that we'd appreciate you filling out so that we can improve these webinars in the future. If you have any other questions, please feel free to add them into the chat along with your email address so that we can follow up with you at a later point. And if you don't have any other questions, this concludes our Lunch and Learn. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.